Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio episode, not sure, doesn't matter. This is actually a very rare occurrence in the fact that I am with the person that I'm interviewing in person. It doesn't usually happen like that. We're usually on Skype chatting, but I've come down to visit Hazel Wallace ahead of her book launch, which I'm going to this evening. Hazel, hello.
Hello and welcome to my house.
I know, it's beautiful. The smell is divine.
Yeah, I'm a candle maniac.
See, candles, I love candles, but it's always one of those things, you're in the shop and you see a really expensive candle and you're like, oh, the smell's amazing, and you're like, £25, really?
I know, but they last for so long, and I feel like my mum used to light a candle when I was revising and when I was a student, so now when I light a candle I'm like, I'm so productive.
Yeah.
It's just really relaxing.
I agree with you. If I work late, I put on a candle that smells, and I think there's something calming about it that almost brings your energy down, and you're almost like, right, now I feel relaxed, I can really focus, the task ahead isn't stressful, so there's almost like a mental connection.
Absolutely. There.
Yeah. Okay, so you came on the show a while ago and we had an incredible discussion. We got some really positive feedback from it, and I think this is something that everyone's got an opinion about. Mm-hmm. What we're doing in the preventative care realm, you being in both preventative care and medical care. We spoke an awful lot about food, nutrition, just to kind of almost pick up from where we've left off. You've been doing a lot of kind of, campaigning on a personal level. You've been communicating with lots of different people. Has anything changed? Do you see people talking about it in a different way? I know you're in your circle and I'm in my circle. Is there a shift in any way in what you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to kind of give you some background, when I started the Food Medic, which is like my blog, sharing nutrition, physical activity, articles on that kind of thing, I was a medical student and I just started graduate entry medicine. So this was like 2011, 2012. When I started it, no one was talking about it. No medical doctor was talking about it. And if anything, I was discouraged to focus my attention on that kind of side of things. Nutrition as a whole isn't really taught at medical school. There's about 10 to 15 hours on average, which is crazy. So throughout the couple of years that I've been talking about this, I've noticed a bit of a pickup. And since we spoke last, which wasn't, what was it, January? It was like 6 months ago.
I can't remember.
It wasn't too long ago.
Well, now it's April, so that was only 3 months ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Let's say 9 months.
Okay. So the last time we spoke, even then I was like, oh, I don't know, Ben. There's still like a lot of like skeptical people out there, skeptical doctors, because like pills and interventions and surgery is our bread and butter. That's what you learn at medical school. And kind of shifting that focus to something like nutrition, physical activity, stress management, sleep management is a very different thing, and it almost requires a new set of skills, new set of training, new modules that would require medical school to completely change their curriculum. Now, every medical school has the choice of how they kind of set out their curriculum. Mm-hmm. There's some guidance from the GMC, the General Medical Council, but they have like a lot of flexibility. So there's certain schools who really have picked up on this, Bristol being one of them, Brighton. There's like just a few different pockets of schools who are starting to integrate nutrition into their curriculum, and it's largely to do to the medical students in these schools who have set up their own societies from listening to doctors like myself, and they're like, whoa, I want to be a doctor who can advise my patient on what to eat, how many steps a day they should do, giving them simple digestible chunks in a consultation that they can take away with them. So it's really promising for me to see that, and I think it's up to this new generation of doctors to completely shift the way we look at healthcare, and rather, instead of always focusing on sick care, focusing again on healthcare and how we can keep people healthy, rather than think about what happens when people get sick. And I think that's what it's come to. We always look at how can we fix things or reduce the symptoms, when really we need to focus on the origin, and the origin's usually, yes, there's genetics, environmental, but there's a huge lifestyle element. We can go into so many different topics, but one of the new areas that we're looking at now is kind of like how sedentary we are. Like, physical activity guidelines is one thing, but now we need to bring out new guidelines on sedentary, and like how you can be a marathon runner and be a very active person on the weekend, but if you have a desk job and you're not moving around, you still have the same risk factors.
Sure.
And that's something that we only really picked up on in the last like year or so, I think. And it's feeding that information out, because a lot of people like to do things in chunks. They just want to, like, they'll eat really well in the week, they won't eat well on the weekend, they'll exercise for a week, then they won't do it for 6 weeks. And it's not about, that's not what it's about, and it's not about punishing your body, but like just creating a healthier nation where it's really, really normal to, like, you know, go for a run or take the kids for a walk or cook. Like, these things are very normal, but we're just too busy now that we just kind of like, I don't have time to go to the gym, don't have time to cook. We just make excuses because there's always something more important, and usually, like, oftentimes that thing that's more important is like phone, Netflix. Like, it's not the things that we should be prioritizing.
So this is fascinating, because I think there's almost different pockets of the health and fitness industry that have their opinion and focus on different topics. Now, as a ex-personal trainer transitioned into nutrition, I always focus on the food element, and it's like, that's the thing that changed my life. But I was always active as a young kid. I always played sport and all that kind of stuff. And every kind of campaigner, scientist that I've spoke to has always brought up physical activity a lot more than I would have expected them to. But I have a bias in that my background is that nutrition changed my life and activity was always there. But we're living in a world where everyone's really sedentary. So I interviewed Dr. Carl Brandt, who he's come over and is doing a lot of work with the UK, runs a company called Liver Healthcare, doing some amazing stuff. And I said to him, you know, we've got this diabetes epidemic, and he talked a lot about diabetes. And he said, well, I said to him, what's the solution? Is it nutrition? Is it exercise? Is it equally both? And he said, well, I'm a huge fan of exercise because literally no one's moving. And if I prescribe exercise, which we're now working towards actually prescribing exercise, I can cut the risk of diabetes. I can automatically help out the nutrition problem, which is an overconsumption of calories, by burning more calories. So actually, where I'm from in the wider personal training population, we all focus on like the hour that we do in the gym. That's not the problem. And if I go into the gym, I have the ability to maybe burn between 400 and 700 calories tops. I cannot burn more than that in an hour because I'll probably be dead. So it's the activity thing. And I think maybe perhaps we do need to be talking about it more, because I still see the conversation. I think I'm actually guilty of it myself. Are we talking too much about food and not enough about movement?
I think we are. And like, the issue is when we have to eat, but a lot of people think that we don't have to move when we really do. And in terms of weight loss intervention, physical activity isn't the best, because it really comes down to dietary control. But the health benefits that you get from physical activity are like beyond that, I think, that you can get from nutrition, because it reduces your risk of not just like one but many diseases, from depression, Alzheimer's, dementia, to heart disease, diabetes. Like, I don't know if you've come across the term exercise snacking, but
I haven't. No.
It's not snacking while you exercise, which I was really upset to find out about. But basically, it's about like breaking up your exercise into chunks throughout the day rather than doing one big chunk. And a group of researchers basically looked at this in a group of patients who were at risk of type 2 diabetes, so they had high blood sugars. And they found that their blood sugars were more regulated when they did it in little chunks. So actually, for some people, it might be better, instead of just like doing a whole big workout at the end of the day, if they could do 10 minutes throughout the day, breaking it up into chunks. That's probably more manageable. You know, might be just walking the kids to school, might be walking to get the newspaper for like someone who's a bit older. Little things like that are going to make huge changes. But we're always focusing on these big 45, 60 minute chunks, which
Which seem unachievable.
Especially when you see people doing it like 5-6 times a week. But you can actually fit into your day, and like it's so interesting to see people get like standing desks now, and like using different ways of fitting in just movement. Like standing alone is better than sitting. That is reducing your risk. So like if you can stand on the tube, stand on the train, if you can like get off your bus a stop earlier, there's so many different things, and I feel like we all know this, but we don't fully appreciate the benefits. And I mean, I think for me it's difficult because my audience are largely 25 to 35. They're not really thinking about their health in that way. They're thinking about their health from a physical aesthetic point of view, which is fine. But you need to kind of think about these things early on, because there's no good like hitting 60, getting the diagnoses of like diabetes, heart disease, all of that, and then going, man, what do I do now? And you're already stuck in your routine. It's more difficult to build those habits. But if we start young, and I mean start real young, where we're getting kids doing these things, then you're going to grow up. It's going to be a part of your skill set. It's just going to be ingrained in you. And I think, you know, what Jamie Oliver done like years ago in like kids' schools, like that was incredible. It just didn't really take on as I thought it would.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing point, because especially I remember when the programs came out, because I was really engaged, because I was a young practitioner at the time, and I was thinking a lot about it. And all the resistance came from parents saying, oh, you don't know what it's like, you know, we don't have enough money, we don't have the choice, we don't have the time. And I was actually arguing around the dinner table last night. We had a good debate around the Sunday roast last night, where we talked about choices. And it's very quick and easy to sit there and go, I don't have a choice, I don't have time. And actually you as a practitioner might just simply say to someone, could you find 10 minutes in the morning? And actually the reality is someone could find 10 minutes. And actually if you really applied yourself, you could probably do quite a lot in 10 minutes. Like you could probably do your food prep for the day in 10 minutes. You could do a quick, even a HIIT workout, or go up and down your stairs 15 times if you made the choice. But we talked quite a bit before we went on recording that people have to stimulate that environment from the top down. So the NHS has to look at this from the top down. The families have to look at their home environment from the top down. So, you know, dad and mum have to communicate that down with the to the children. And I think until everyone accepts that they are in charge and have the ability to change, we're not actually going to see change. And I think that's why people, whoever is listening to this podcast right now, has to feel that they have the ability to change some environment, whether it's the work environment, the home environment. So I want people to know from this discussion that there is something that someone can do to help themselves and other people. Yeah,
absolutely. In January, I done a 4-week documentary with BBC Inside Out London, and it was called Super Movers. And basically I was given a family of 4 who are very inactive and asked to kind of go in and give them really easy changes so that they can improve their kind of physical activity by the end of the 4 weeks. So we went, took them to a university, we done loads of fitness tests and loads of body scanning, and then brought them back at the end of the 4 weeks. And in that time, I'd check in on them every week, go to their house, see what they're doing. And it was so interesting because, you know, the young boy was 9, the teenager was 13, and then we'd mum and dad. And as a whole, they were very inactive. The little boy done rugby and stuff in school, so he was really easy, and he really engaged with me. One of the things that I challenged him to do was to hit his 5 a day every day, and to keep a chart of it, and to try change it up. Like, why don't you try a new fruit and vegetable every week? And he really enjoyed it and was making smoothies for the whole family every morning. And it was so inspiring to see. But what I found the most difficult, or the person who was most resistant, I think, was the mum, even though she was the one who really wanted to change things, because her family has a lot of heart disease and she was hugely at risk. and her blood pressure was quite high, so she felt like there was an emotional element for her, and she was like, I want to change.
Yep.
But because she has years of habits,
Yep.
like bad habits of like snacking mindlessly but not really knowing why, always grabbing food after work even when she's not really hungry and she's going home to have dinner, and not really moving anymore, even though she used to really enjoy it, because she doesn't have time because of the kids. And I found that was the most eye-opening thing for me, because we had to spend a lot of time on speaking to her and like her kind of ideas around movement and, you know, what counts, because she was like, well, if I'm not doing something like super sweaty like a boot camp class, then there's no point. Where I was like, why don't you guys, like, as a family every Sunday do something active?
Yep.
So they started going climbing, trampolining. It was Christmas, so they were ice skating, and it was like simple things like that where you're actually really active and the whole family are getting involved. I think for them that's the way to go, and encouraging them to do it together, because like the dad, he used to run and he never ran anymore, and his daughter was then like, right, we'll do it together. So they were going out and like dad and daughter runs, and I'm like, they need each other, because there's, you know, it's difficult if you're the one person in the household that's like, hey, how about we eat healthy this week, or I might go for a run. It's like you need that support.
Definitely. And I suppose you have to be willing to have that conversation to show why it can benefit each other in your environment without it being confrontational, without making people feel bad, like, oh, we need to eat healthily, and focus on a negative attachment to that because we're overweight, or because but rather than focusing on an empowering process, like, why don't we get outside because it makes us feel good, we bond as a family, we're able to even control our weight better. So even the language around that, I think, is really important, because in the coaching environment, it's very quick to see friction between a couple when one person wants to change and the other doesn't.
Yeah.
And the other person in that relationship is like, well, we need to change. You need to do this. You should do this. And automatically you put your wall up because you're questioning someone's values, beliefs and morals.
Yeah.
And, coaching and our challenge as practitioners is about being able to almost give someone a hug in some way, and to say, where you are right now is cool. We're just going to move forward. And we're going to see if we can pick up some greater momentum, because I don't want you to get down in the dumps or feel bad about where you currently are, because it's not ever going to be a positive thing.
No, absolutely. And one thing I did learn from that documentary with the mum, she, by the end of it, she didn't see a huge change in her measurements. She didn't gain weight or anything, and it was over the Christmas period, so I was like, you're actually doing quite well. She stayed the same and her fitness improved slightly. And she cried because she felt like, I'm a failure and my family are here. And I was like, let's look at what you did do well. And she went from someone who was doing a step count of 3,000 steps a day to smashing 20,000 steps a day, because she started walking to work. And I was like, you don't realise the benefits you're doing to yourself. You're slashing your risk of heart disease, you're improving your lifespan, you're like so many things. And like changing that mindset, she was like, oh yeah, like I guess I did do well. And I think, again, we're always focusing on the numbers and the measurements, and sometimes it's the things you can't see that give us the biggest benefits.
I think in that situation, that mum as well, she might even see you across the table talking to her and compare yourself to her and think, well, Hazel's doing this and other people are doing that. And I think that's part of the problem we have with social media now, is we're constantly comparing ourselves to everyone else. And like, how about we turn off the phone and turn off what's going on around us and say, what have I achieved this week? And is that a reason to feel positive and grateful? And only if you go through that process do you start to build your inner belief and confidence around you. Because I can sit here as a practitioner and look at a nutritionist that I look up to and feel bad that I don't know about something. But I've got to look within myself and say, well, how have I improved this week, and how have I impacted the people that I'm designed to impact? And I think until we detach ourselves, we can't ever really build momentum within our own characters. And I think that's almost a bit of a shame. Yeah,
it is, because we're always comparing ourselves to someone else rather than where we are in our space and the improvements we've made. I think, like, regardless of how intelligent you are, how many degrees you have, how far you've travelled, or whatever experiences you have, everyone experiences that. And it's really important to step back and reflect and be like, actually, what did I do this month that I really, you know, like that was really great and that made me progress in myself as a character. And that in itself gives you more confidence in yourself to do greater things, whether it's, you know, challenge yourself to doing something bigger in fitness, or whether it comes to food, or doing something and stepping outside your comfort zone. And a lot of this is to do to people just being too comfortable in their own habits. You know, it's safe to stay in what you know.
Habit change is a difficult thing for some people, and I quite often say to people, if you are not sure how to break a habit, throw yourself into an environment where you're forced to break the habit. So, you know, I sometimes use the example of a gym. If you walk into the gym 3 times a week and you're not inspired by your gym, and you need to break the habit that motivation has almost started to decline and you don't value exercise, I'm like, walk into a gym that you know is going to fire you up. So if you know that a friend is going to a CrossFit box, and they literally come home every day and they're like, wow, my workout was amazing, like I feel so inspired, like just join that gym, like take that brave step to walk through the door. Or if you know a friend is more active than you, ring them up and say, can we go for coffee at the weekend? Because you know that friend will probably say, should we go for a walk? And then you start to see that all these habits are easy to form if you're in the right environment with the right people and thinking the right way. And ultimately, there's no way that you can't get taken away by that environment and inspired, because ultimately we're a product of our environment, and we have to be willing to change every part of our environment if we want to see the shift within ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was like we were speaking about kind of like phone usage, and there's like an interesting statistic that says that 75% of adults have their phone on them 24/7, like completely in, they don't have to move their feet and their phone is on them 24/7. 75% of adults. Wow. And it's so true when you think about it. You sleep with your phone, it's in your pocket, you carry it with you, you always have it. So this weekend when I put, you know, a group of 30 people on a digital detox, I literally told them to switch off their phones, put it in a bucket, and I locked it away. Everyone was like, oh, put it in there. And afterwards we had a reflection, and I had people break down and cry to me because they felt so free for the first time in a long time. And they're like, I've always wanted to do this, but I needed someone to actually enable me to do it and take my phone off me. And, you know, I think technology is brilliant. Like, I use it for my job, but again, we overuse it. And not only is it like addictive, but it does lead to bad habits. You know, it makes you more sedentary. It makes you less productive. It probably makes you choose, you know, less healthy behaviors. And I think that's going to be a big problem in the future as well, but that's another conversation.
It is. And I think one of the issues is, and I noticed this with myself, this was a process that I went through. When you see a Facebook notification, for example, and you're like, oh, just check that. In your head, you checking that is going to take 10 seconds, but it doesn't. It takes 2, 3, 4 minutes. Then it maybe leads on to something else, another notification, then an email. And if you're in and around your family, and I noticed this with my fiance Lizzie, I was like, oh, just check that. And then she looks at me and like, you've been on your phone for like 10 minutes. Are you like, what the fuck? Like, why? And I'm like, you're right. You're like, and in my head, I'm just taking 10 seconds, but you're not. And if you're not paying attention to the people around you, they start to say, well, what is more important to you? Is it your Facebook friend or whatever? Or is it the relationship that we have and the fact that it's maybe date night and you promised that you wouldn't be on your phone, and the chances are you shouldn't be on your phone because you do value that relationship. And I think until, like you said, someone forces you to take that moment to see what you actually do, how you behave, and the time it takes, you'll never see it. And I say to people, right, it's the morning, you usually check your phone in the morning, put on a timer, and then go and do what you do, and then come back to the timer and look and ask yourself, okay, was I happy that I just spent 18 minutes on Facebook at 7 o'clock in the morning when, like, and let's say this person's trying to change, where you could have gone out, gone for a walk, had a little stretch, prepared breakfast, made a better lunch, anything like that. Until you force people to be aware of that, the change can never actually happen.
No, it can't. And I mean, there's some teenagers that spend up to 16 hours a day on their phone. Like, I'm like, where do they sleep? But like, they just literally are constantly hooked onto their phone.
Yeah.
I think, like, for some people who are mindful that they're really dependent on their phone, try to like reduce your activity in little chunks. Like the best way to start, I think, is around meal times. Put your phone in a different room, like, because not only are you going to actually be mindful and enjoy your meal, enjoy the company of the person you're sharing with, get more nutrient value from the food, it's also going to give you like those little chunks throughout the day where you're just like putting that phone away. I also really don't agree with people going on social media first thing in the morning, because again, that is just a stream of negativity coming into your life, and it's not always negative, but you're instantly, you know, like in the morning your cortisol levels are at its highest because it's getting you ready for the day. If you're like adding stress on top of that, like you're just like, you know, your cortisol levels are through the roof, your blood sugar levels are going up, you're not starting your day and, you know, like the right mind frame. Like I've spoken about breathing techniques before, and kind of like teaching people to practice, you know, whether it's daily meditation through a Calm app or Headspace. That instantly switches you from sympathetic mode, which is fight or flight, to parasympathetic mode, where you're like chilled, you know, you're calm, collected, your thoughts are ready for the rest of the day. Sit down with your journal, write out what you want to do for the day, then go on social media. You know, like you have your plan, you control your phone, it doesn't control you, and I think that's the way to...
I think the key word I've picked up there is you and your, in that if you open your phone up in the morning and you let the world around you dictate how you're going to think, the potential is that you're not in control of your day, because already, even like, let's say I opened up my phone and looked at your Instagram this morning, am I in full control of my thoughts? No, maybe only now 90 or 80%, because you're in my head. It's almost like I'm thinking about the recipe that you posted or whatever. And I think, especially when people are in a place that they don't feel that are in full control of their day and what's happening, and they don't feel fully empowered, you have to have these rules where you're like, right, when I get up, the phone doesn't go on, and I do my thing, and I have a routine, and I write a plan for myself. And it sounds really silly, but I'm like a real diligent planner. I've got like a to-do list for everything, because I know my flaws as a human. Like, I'm forgetful like everyone else. So if I don't write it down, it doesn't get done. If I don't write down the most important thing for my work day, it doesn't get done first. You know, so even someone that's trying to change lifestyle habits, if we said, right, I get up and at 7 o'clock I put the kettle on, then I go for a walk, and then I do this, and I make my lunch, unless you do that, it won't happen. So you've still got a plan for it, but there's got to be rules that force you to actually just implement that plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of diarising everything. And like even now, like cooking is something I do every day, but I still like write in my diary like meal prep, or like these are the amount of lunches that are going to be out of the house, so make sure like you pack those lunches to bring with you. And like simple things like that I still do, like even though I've been doing this for years. And like you said, everyone is like, oh, everyone's human. You know, we forget these things, or like the day runs away on us. And like, if you have it in your diary, you know, you just check it into the day. Like I always say, book out the times in your diary that you want to work out, because then you can't be like, I don't have time. You know, like that's an appointment with you and the gym. That's your time.
100%. So I'm interested, do you keep a handwritten diary or a digital diary?
Handwritten.
Me too. Again, it's a digital thing. So if it's on my phone and I sit down, I'm like, right, I'm now going to plan. What happens if a notification pops up? Do I check it? Am I being diligent? So again, with handwriting, you're separated from the phone. You spend 5 minutes with yourself. And I think it's almost, it's kind of Neanderthal in that, you know, writing has a deeper connection with what you're doing. And
absolutely, no, it's so true, and there's evidence to say so. And I think when I was at uni, I was like, I'm going to handwrite all my notes, because I read like in a paper that we are more likely to remember things or acknowledge things that we've handwritten rather than typed, because it's our writing and we're telling ourselves these things. So when you write down something in your diary, you don't really realise, but on a subconscious level, you're like logging that in your brain, and it's making it a bit more important rather than just typing it in your notes like call so-and-so or whatever.
I love that. I don't think I've framed that well enough in the past, actually, because I always talk about me. I'm quite a creative person. I studied art and design and media and acting when I was at school, so it almost felt natural that I would write anything. But I think coming to it is now that I have a deeper connection with everything that I do. And people always ask me, like, how do I plan? How do I structure my time? And it's a case that I spend time engaging with that every week. Like I write a plan for myself. Like you said, even with meals, I have to sit down and say, right, what do I need to buy from the supermarket this week? I only need 4 days worth of food because I'm travelling for 2 days and I'll probably buy some food on the road and all that kind of stuff. But unless you say, right, there's an hour in my week where you write down and plan, none of this is going to happen. And, you know, people are great at maybe writing down the fact that they need to go to the gym. But what about me time, family time, social time, you know, your partner, your kids, like literally planning everything? Because otherwise, again, it's just not going to happen for me.
No, it's not. Yeah.
So I just want to finish quickly up on reversing back to the conversation we started with, which was preventative care, what's happening in the medical world. You talked about there's a shift of young people coming through in medicine that are championing food. That's brilliant. Do you think almost more time will be made for this to happen? So the GP only has a certain amount of time with the patient. I'm assuming it's around 10 minutes.
Yeah.
If we learn these skills and we have these skills, will a GP ever still have the time to do what they need to do or want to do with the patient?
I think in the current healthcare climate, probably not, because the funding isn't there. You know, there's not enough GPs to go around. But saying that, there's a lot of GPs who are really passionate about this because they're frustrated. They're like, I want to help my patients. And I know some incredible GPs who are now, they try to give like their patients one takeaway. And if that is, you know, this week try getting like five a day.
Yep.
Or this week, how about you try to hit 10,000 steps, or like even 5,000 steps. The next week, hit 10,000 steps and come back to me in 6 weeks. But one interesting way I think we could do it is attaching a health coach. And although I don't really like the term health coach, because I think like a lot of people call themselves health coaches and they're not. But if we had some form of trained professional who could give out lifestyle advice, whether that was food, exercise, stress management, and we had that attached to every practice. So that person was hired by the practice, was paid a salary by that practice.
Yep. That
was their job. So that if you came through my door, I'm your GP, and I feel like you could do with some form of lifestyle intervention, I could be like, right, Ben, you know, we had a really good conversation today. We've got a few pointers that we want to take away, but I'm going to direct you to so-and-so, and then we're going to make this plan together. You come back in and have checkups. We can have like group discussions, make it a bit more of a community practice kind of, I guess, challenge together. Because if like you're a 60-year-old man, it's going to be difficult for you to change anything if you don't have someone telling you how to change it. It's all well and good telling someone to get active, lose weight, but how do you do it?
Yeah.
You know? So I think that's the way to go, because not every person who walks through the GP practice needs that. Like, if it's a 5-year-old boy with an ear infection, you know, like that's easy. Just, you know, see them and then send them home. But, you know, I think we need to change the way we deliver healthcare, because it's the way it's designed. It's to look after acute infectious diseases. And it's interesting because in 2000, looking at the top 10 killers of the world, like HIV's on there. Now HIV's not on there anymore because we've got these incredible interventions. We are saving lives because we know what the problem is. We know what the virus is. We can target it. You can't like target really diabetes. You can give insulin to reduce blood sugar, but it's not treating the problem.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're using old school thinking to treat chronic diseases which build up over years of time. You don't just go bam, diabetes, bam, heart disease.
Yeah.
It's happening, you know, for 20, 30 years in advance. It's what we do today that impact us in our old age.
To finish up, I believe that, especially when I was younger as a personal trainer, I always viewed the medical industry as doing one thing, and I disagreed with a lot of it, and it would force me to not take action to help bridge that gap between the healthcare practitioners that are personal trainers, nutritionists, etc., and the medical industry. And you know, I would always say, well, you know, I don't agree with that, so I'm not going to recommend this. And, you know, the doctors don't know about nutrition, come and see me. And actually, again, nothing will ever change if I don't help try and bridge that gap. So there's no reason why a personal trainer or a coach can't try and create a connection with their local GP office or their local medical practice and say, right, what challenges do you face? How can I support it? is there something that we could run between our professions? Do you think I'm adequately qualified? And create initiatives around it rather than just creating more of a gap, saying, well, the medical industry don't know what they're doing, we know what they're doing, and then the doctors going, well, personal trainers don't know what they're doing because they're giving out the wrong advice that they're not qualified for and stuff. So I kind of feel like there needs to be a call of arms to people to help bridge that gap, because if not enough people do it, then the gap will remain.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is that GP referral system for GPs to refer to PTs.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not utilised. Also,
No.
I find when there's a referral system, there's usually a delay, paperwork goes missing, people never really take it up. So the amount of people I know who are qualified to take those referrals as PTs, so not once have I been approached by a GP.
Wow.
So it's an imperfect system. Yep. But if you had someone dedicated to a practice, they're there for a reason. It's their job. I think, that would make such a huge difference. And it's not, you don't have to put someone through 6 years of medical training to be able to offer that advice.
Sure. So wrapping up, the second book
yeah, I know.
is coming out, The Food Medic for Life. What's different? What's changed? What's in it? What will people learn? I suppose, what's the mission of the book?
So it's actually less than 12 months since the first book, and
been busy.
It's been busy. And this one feels like a huge transition on from the first one. The first one was largely setting the scene, giving people the basic foundation in nutrition, what are carbs, fats, proteins, kind of building a healthy diet. And also I put in some physical activity in there. This one I kind of take it a step further, and I've split it up into Fuel Up and Power Down. So Fuel Up recognises those times where we are incredibly busy, and we need recipes that are quick and easy. So it's breakfast on the go, lunchbox recipes, dinners in under 30 minutes. And also I'm using ingredients that you can pick up anywhere in Tesco's. There's no niche ingredients. Yep. And also only a handful of ingredients. So you'll see the ingredient lists are very short.
They are.
Which I'm all about. And in that I kind of I've got a couple of feature pages which are referring to nutrition. So again, I cover proteins, fats, carbs, but also things like 5 a day. Should I have 10 a day? Is red meat bad for me? Do eggs raise my cholesterol? Just giving people those myth busters that they read online.
Nice.
What I hear from my patients. And then in the Power Down section, I've got recipes which take a little bit longer, Sunday brunches, dinners with the family. And this is recognizing those times when you do have time, and I want people to actually enjoy the cooking process, think about food. I talk about mindfulness in the NHS, sleep, I go into all the research behind it, and meditation, which is relatively new for people, particularly over in the UK. Still new for me, but on a personal level, I feel like it's massively improved my life. And I think looking at the research, that's something that we're not touching on as well as healthcare professionals. It's kind of seen as alternative, hippy dippy, let's not go there. But some of my patients now, I'm try downloading the Calm app and do it for 10 minutes every day, because not everyone has a problem with food. Sometimes people are nailing their nutrition, but they're so stressed that they actually just need to enjoy food and kind of sit down, eat mindfully. And like we spoke about before, there's evidence to say that families who sit down and eat together tend to be of a healthier weight, have lower risk of disease. There's so many benefits to just sitting down, 30 minutes, phone away, eat with your family, chat about what you had today, what went well, what didn't go well. Just really enjoy it,
I think this is a beautiful book. It's amazing, so well done.
Thank you.
It's absolutely brilliant. Just to pick up on that, I think, especially with myself, we talked a lot about the mobile phone today, and quite often people will feel tired, and I would like to leave people with the thought of, are you tired because you maybe haven't eaten enough, or you haven't got a good enough sleep, or maybe it's literally that your brain needs a rest, that it's taken in so much stimulus right now that it just can't handle it. And I find that maybe when I turn off my phone, I go for a walk, I just down tools, all my mental energy comes back, and it was nothing to do with food or sleep. It was just that we've only got so much capacity as a human being to take information in. And the world we live in right now is go, 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 work, conversation, kids, phone, phone, phone. And if the mobile phone wasn't there, our brain would have got small rests throughout the day because that's what we used to do. But now we fill it with the phone, and the phone, whether it's positive or negative, is still just taking in information. The brain's only got so much power. The book, where is it? Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon, WH Smith, Eason's in Ireland, and it comes out on Thursday.
Sweet!
Yeah.
So by the time this podcast goes live, it will be up, it's out. The Food Medic for Life. Please do check it out. Hazel, for people that would like to find you on social media, that don't already know where you are, where should they find you?
It's easy. It's under the handle The Food Medic on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. My website's also www.thefoodmedic.co.uk.
Amazing. If this podcast has helped, you think it can help someone else, you found it interesting, please give it a share. Tag in a friend who you think might listen to the conversation. Please go and show Hazel some love. If you're interested in the book, then have a look on Amazon, check it out. Otherwise, Hazel, thank you for your time today. I genuinely love talking to you because you are bridging that gap, and I think it's refreshing, and I think the world needs more people like you doing this kind of stuff, because otherwise the message doesn't get heard. So keep doing what you're doing. Please don't stop. That's a request from me, and I'm sure it's a request from many other people, but good luck with the book, and yeah, all the best.
Thank you.
Whoa, just before you go, couple of things. Firstly, if you need my help at any point in time, reach out to my Facebook fan page, ask a question, and I'll get back to you. The reason I like my Facebook fan page is because I can send voice memos back, and it's really time efficient for me to be able to help as many people as possible. If you want to find out just anything I'm up to, keep abreast of social media, make sure you're on my email newsletter, and all of that info is at bencoomber.com. If you want nutrition education in the future, then have a look at the BTN Academy. That's our online nutrition courses. If you want to be coached by me, then join my 90-day body and mind transformation program, Fat Loss for Life. And if you're looking for clarity, honesty, simplicity, and research-proven supplements that taste awesome, then go to awesomesupplements.co.uk. That's my links. That's where to find me. That's where to find the cool stuff. I'm out. Have an awesome day. Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number, no idea, doesn't matter.